Welcome to New Hampshire Politics with John Burt. I'm John Burt. I want to thank you for joining me today, and today we're going to have an exciting show because we're going to be talking about that new gas tax that just came up and several other things that we're going to talk about. But my guest is Representative Lynne Ober, and she's been on once before, and I got a lot of positive emails from you guys. Lynne, I want to thank you for joining me.
John, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and like I said, we're going to be talking about that gas tax everybody's buzzing about because
they are.
There's a lot of people that aren't happy about it, and I got a few phone calls on it and a couple emails, and they're saying, what is going on?
I have to tell you, I emailed all my constituents on Sunday and said, fill your gas tank up on Monday and put the pennies in your summer ice cream cone fund because the gas tax is going up 23%.
Yeah. And you know, with the gas, typically this time of year it goes up anyways because of the 4th of July. Yeah, we're taping around the 4th of July, and it's just it climbs. And now, about a year ago, they wanted a 16-cent tax increase on the gas tax.
They wanted 78% gas tax increase.
Yeah.
A year ago.
And
the House passed that, and the Senate did not.
Yes. But I think it was close in the House, wasn't it? Or did it pass fairly?
It passed fairly easily.
Oh, it did, because I remember getting up on the House floor fighting it, and many of us did.
It was too much. The gas tax hasn't been raised for decades.
Yeah.
But to raise it that much at one time when families are pinched,
no,
it was too much.
And now what I understand, too, in the same term, we're not supposed to bring a bill back. So how did this 4.2%, which is 4.2 cents, which is about a 26% increase, I think it was, in the tax? How did that come back?
Dave Campbell brought the first bill in.
Yeah.
He was a representative from Nashua.
Yep.
The Senate can bring a bill back the second year if they wish. In the House, we could have brought in another bill because the rule says if you bring in a bill and if it passes the House and dies in the Senate, you can file a like or similar bill in the second year. So either in this case, either body could have filed a bill, and the Senate filed theirs.
Now, what is this 4.2 cents going to do for us?
I'm not sure.
That's what a lot of people are saying. It's all over. I know I'm not happy with it.
I voted against it.
I too.
One of the reasons I voted against it, quite frankly, is the highway fund is supposed to be a dedicated fund. And a dedicated fund in New Hampshire is a fund where we capture the money and put it away for a specific use. And let's face it, the idea behind a gas tax or a highway fund is that you're driving on the roads, you're using the bridges. The more you drive, the more gas you would buy, the more road usage you would have, the more bridge usage you would have. And so you were paying your fair share. It was really a user fee. But over the years, nearly 37% of that fund is being siphoned off for other agencies. And I will tell you, we had a highway commissioner who's been gone, I think, about 8 years, Commissioner Flynn, who was the Commissioner of Safety. And everybody said about him what they did about J. Edgar Hoover. He knows where all the bodies are buried. He knows everybody's secrets. He'd been around forever. He was quite the character. And years ago, he said to the governor who bought into it, I wasn't in the legislature then, but he said to the governor, listen, every crime being committed is being committed by somebody driving a car because we have no public transportation. Therefore, the safety agency should get money from the highway fund. And the judicial branch says, we collect a lot of the fees because, of course, you get a speeding ticket, they collect the fee. So the judicial branch is getting $2 million, and safety is getting something like $73 million. I've got the exact figures here. I'd have to really look and read them to you. But a lot of money is being siphoned out of the highway fund and not going to bridges and not going to roads, and that's the problem.
Yes. And same way with this. And allegedly this is a 20-year tax. So in 20 years, will get their 4 cents back.
Oh, do you believe that?
Well, well, I'll tell you, Lynn, my mother, I remember I was 12 years old in Vermont, and they put in a sales tax, or it might have been the income tax. I can't remember which one it was, but it was going to expire in a couple of years. Well, I remember my mother on the phone screaming at my aunt, "Can you believe what they just did?" And apparently 1972 has never came over there because they still have all those taxes.
Of course they do.
Yeah. So.
And I actually misspoke, John, so let me tell you that
Oh.
the safety agency is getting, or got, nearly $76 million in 2014, which ended June 30th, and is scheduled to get $78 million and $195,000 in 2015, which will end June 30th, 2015. It's the fiscal year we're in now. So that's a huge amount of money going out of the highway fund into an agency being spent on other things. They have $9 or $10 million supporting the office of the commissioner, whereas every other office of every other commissioner has to fight for general fund dollars, which are the dollars that the legislature cuts when the budget comes around. Yeah. This is dedicated money. Nobody looks at it. Think about your budget at home. You want a Ferrari. That's always my dream.
Yes.
You want a Ferrari, and you find a way that somebody will pay for it that you can't question. So when your spouse says to you, we can't afford the Ferrari, you say, oh no, so-and-so is going to pay for it. We're not paying for it. So you get it. And that's basically what happens.
Well, so how can we force them into the general fund where they should be?
Well, they're supposed to be. If you look, we have all these papers that are done by the legislative budget assistant, who's a nonpartisan group. This is not a Republican versus Democrat discussion, because this has been going on no matter who's in power. This is just the situation. Commissioner Flynn was very good at making his case that he should get pieces of this. But we've had laws that say safety cannot exceed X percent. And if you look back in 2010, they were compliant. However, in 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015, the governor, when he or she, because it was John Lynch and now it's Governor Hassan, submitted his or her budget, they suspended that and allowed safety to take more money than they should have gotten by law.
Yeah.
That is very hard for the legislature to overturn at any time, because those budgets come to us. We only cut and deal with general funds. So now if you say to safety, sorry, we're only going to give you what the law says, you are actually saying to safety, and you're now going to lay off all these people. There's no other recourse because there's no other way to get money. The governor has already done his or her budget and passed it on, and the governor won't revisit. So it's a very difficult situation. I mean, it's hard to sit down with somebody and say to them, sorry, you no longer have a job.
Yes, yeah. Now, one thing I think bothers me, the way it's done up there, Lynn, is last year when we had the 16-cent tax, you know, Representative Campbell and several of them, they would get up on the House floor and our bridges were falling in, and, you know, it was next thing to children are dying in the streets. The roads are so bad. Well, I'd say go to Mass or Vermont or Maine, you know, our roads are fairly good compared to other states around us. But now this time, there's no talk of those bridges, or not very much of it. It's more of the expanding of I-93.
Oh, I know.
And so I'm going, well, where are those bridges, those red-listed bridges that are falling into our rivers? I guess they aren't important anymore.
You know, some of those red-listed bridges, and I'm not an engineer, so I hate to go down this path, but some of those red-listed bridges are not in danger, but they're on the red list because the engineering practices that were practice of the day when the bridge was made are no longer recognized as good practices.
Yes.
So they will now take that bridge, even though it's inspected and in very good repair, and they will put it on a red listed bridge. and then everybody looks at that and they think, oh, that's about to fail. But in actual fact, a goodly number of those bridges are in good repair.
Yes.
They just were not made to current engineering practices.
Yep.
And we need to have a better way of designating ones that are actually damaged and need to be fixed, excuse me, versus something that's no longer an engineering practice. And then have maybe, I don't know, a yellow list. We need to keep watching these because today we wouldn't allow that kind of construction to be done. And then a red list. These bridges are truly in danger. Let's do something about them right now.
Yes, but in this 4.2 cent increase, there was no talk of, virtually no talk of these red listed bridges.
No, everything is aimed now at how are we going to fund the I-93 expansion. I live in Hudson. I represent Hudson and Pelham. And so the expansion will impact my communities. I feel a little bit about the expansion the way the towns up north feel about the Northern Pass. It's ugly. I don't want to see it. I don't want it done. Just leave the interstate the way it was. Keep the bridges good. Keep the roads good. But we don't need to be taking more land and expanding and having more exhaust fumes and having more this and having fewer trees. So, it's always a case of not in my backyard. Doesn't matter what the choice is. Not in my backyard, please and thank you.
But I understand almost 60% of it's going to the highway, isn't it?
Yes.
And then the other thing that bothers me is that now Merrimack, they're going to close one of the tolls. And we're going to have to pay this taxes, so the people that drive in their cars, they're going to have to pay the bond off, which I think expires 25 or 22, 2022, somewhere's in there.
Yeah, we're getting close to paying that off. I think we're within 8 years of having that bond paid off.
Okay, yeah.
The idea with when the Merrimack developers wanted those tolls, the thing was we will keep the tolls, it will pay off the bond. That hasn't happened. And the tolls will never officially go away because they will continue to pay the maintenance on the roads leading to those exits and on maintaining those exits. So the tolls may get lowered when the bonds are paid off, but they won't go away because there's still ongoing maintenance. You want it plowed, you want this, you want it striped, you want to make sure it's paved if it gets rough. So some amount of money would be collected and continue to go to those tolls. The developers then developed all the housing land all around that, and now people have moved in who weren't really part of that agreement, and they're like, hey, how come Merrimack has 3 tolls and nobody else has 3 tolls?
Yeah.
Well, because the developers struck a deal.
Yes.
And bonds were done and still haven't been paid off.
Well, we're going to pay, I think, is it exit 12?
Now everybody in the state will pay off the exit 12 bonds.
Yeah, so now we're going to have to pay that off. Yeah. And from what I understand, they weren't taking much money in anyways there.
No, they weren't.
It's probably costing us more to have the employees in the building.
But now that it's free,
Oh.
if I lived in Merrimack and there were 3 exits, 2 of them had a toll and 1 of them didn't, I would get off at the one that didn't, and I would drive a little farther through the neighborhoods to get where I was going to go. Well, okay, that's human nature, I think.
Yeah, that's going to happen. And then the rest of it, from what I understand, is that it's going to be block grants to the town.
A highway block grant is part of the highway fund.
Okay.
Every town gets a highway block grant every year now. It's done on a formula. It's done on actual, so it's always paid a year behind when highway taxes come in.
Oh, okay.
So the money you got in 2014 was actually paid in 2013. So when the budget is done, we estimate we will collect this much highway tax, gas tax, and we're going to put it in the fund. When the year closes, you know exactly how much you collected.
Yes.
Then the highway block grant is calculated, and the following year you get the money from actuals, not from projected. And quite honestly, with the Prius, which is a hybrid,
Yes, yeah.
the other hybrids that are out there were paying less gas tax. But last year, Ford came out with a C-Max, which is all electric. It's got my friend has got one, and she brags how many months she's gone without buying a gallon of gas and how many miles she's driven without buying a gallon of gas. Chevy came out with a Spark this year. BMW has come out with 3 versions of an electric car.
Wow.
2 of them with supplemental gas engines, 1 of them just purely electric, and of course there's the Chevy Volt, but that runs about $40,000. The Chevy Spark is down around $18,000, so it's really affordable.
Yes.
The Chevy Cruze has got 3 models. The Eco model will get 48 to 52 miles per gallon on the highway. Both my son and my grandson drive Chevy Ecos, and so they have been tracking their gas mileage, and the Eco Cruze lives up to the advertising.
Yeah.
So people are getting more miles, fewer gallons of gas, and that means that impacts the highway fund as well.
Then somebody like me with a Chevy pickup, Silverado, 18 miles to the gallon,
Yep.
if I'm lucky, usually 17 and a half, somewhere's in there, I'm going to pay more in the road tax.
Yes, you are.
So how can we tax the Priuses that pay virtually nothing?
You know, that's an ongoing debate nationwide, and I will tell you, Oregon as a state has come up with something, and they're running a pilot on which I think everybody is watching avidly. And they have 3 methods. One of them includes having a little something installed on your car that actually tracks how many miles you drive. And of course, there are people, I can think of my friend Representative Neil Kirk right off the bat.
Oh, yeah.
If you put that in my car, isn't it going to track where I go? Well, let's face it, if you have an iPhone today, your iPhone every 5 minutes reports to Apple exactly where you are if you've got it turned on and the SIM card in it. So, you know,
Really?
your
Wow.
iPhone is tracking you. If you have an Android phone, it tracks where you are every 5 minutes, but it doesn't send it anywhere. It's just on your phone. So there's a lot of tracking going on. But in Oregon, you can have this put in, and then you will pay, just like the gas tax, a fee for every mile. Or they can look at your average mileage, and you'll pay a blanket fee, and you have no gizmo tracking you. And they're running that pilot now. So
Really?
I don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
I kind of think the feds are going to have to do something too, because they give us money to maintain the interstate system. There's a system of non-interstates but U.S. highway. I mean, Highway 66, isn't that living the lore of whatever?
Yes, yeah.
So they're going to they have the same thing.
Well, I know on the federal side, I heard that, you know, that our representatives are going to take it out, but that they were talking tolls on the highways. You know, the Obama budget
Yeah,
had
well,
tolls in there, but they said that would never fly at this time, but they're going to have to do something.
That would annoy me if I were paying a gas tax and a toll to keep my roads up. But if I were paying an electric car, which was primarily not using gas,
Yeah.
then I would say that's my fair share. But I'm like everybody else. I drive a gas car. I don't want to be double taxed. And I bet you there's nobody in your user community watching the show who voluntarily would say, I'll pay double the highway tax, so go ahead and hit me a toll. No, we're all, you know, dollars are finite, and every family's got financial issues. You have to be aware of that.
Well, that state that has the pilot program, that, you know, it almost sounds like that would work.
It might. And people who, I mean, their idea is the chip doesn't track where you've gone, so it's not going to be Big Brother watching you, but it will track how many miles you've driven.
But I got a lot of friends that will think that it's going to track.
Oh, yeah, I can see
Yeah.
Neil Kirk now. I mean Neil, I take great delight in bringing him every article I can find on a drone. Oh, here, Neil, you can buy this drone and run it at home to see what your neighbors are doing.
Yeah.
He's so very pro-privacy.
Yes, he is. Yeah. Yeah. No, I got a lot of friends that, you know, they don't want any. Well, they won't even get what is it, Easy Pass.
An Easy Pass, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm saying, you know, they're taking a picture of you when you're going through there anyways. They are? Yeah. Every car gets a picture taken.
I hope they're supposed to be disposing of those.
They
I
are.
certainly hope that they are doing that.
Yeah.
But I mean, how many cop shows? You watch any cop shows on TV? How many shows have checked those pictures of people going through those toll booths.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how the police solved the crime.
Yeah. Well, I remember I got a ticket one time, not a ticket, but a, oh, what is it called? They said I ran the Easy Pass without paying it. And I go, no, I didn't.
You get a picture of your license plate, right?
Yeah, so they sent it to me, and I got the picture, and the fine was pretty high. It was like, $40 or something. I'm like, oh, my God, for going through it plus the dollar for, the fee for the going through. So I looked online. The picture was taken at, say, 9 o'clock at night, 01. Well, seconds. Well, at 9, just before that, I went through according to my Easy Pass statement. So it was only like 3 seconds off. So I bring it up to the lady, and I said, hey, what's this? I show right here, and I didn't back up and go through it twice. And she looks and she goes, oh, yeah, we've been having trouble with that. We got to fix that. A lot of people are getting tickets.
Isn't the Mass Pike someplace now going to only Easy Pass, no toll takers at all?
I heard
And if you
that.
don't have an Easy Pass, then just take a picture of your license and they will send you the bill in the mail.
Well, I've told the viewers here many, many times, and when I see people, they do that here too in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I told my brother, I said, or my friends, you get caught in that high-speed lane up in Hooksett, and I think they're over in Hampton they have them.
Yeah.
Do not stop and do not back up. I mean, you just go through, and it's $1 for the fee, for the toll, and they'll send you, and it's $1 processing fee, so $2.
They now have big signs on those that say, do not stop. They had to put those up because when they put them in Hooksett, they had a guy go through who stopped his car, climbed over the Jersey barrier, I don't know how he did that, to pay his toll. Like, no, don't stop. We'll just bill you.
Yeah, I can't believe people are like that.
Yeah.
And I see they put fence up now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they signs.
Yeah.
And
do not stop. Just keep going.
yes. Now, will they, like down in Massachusetts, will there be a fee then?
I don't know. I sort of read through the article, which was in the Boston Globe when they were
I wouldn't mind looking into that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe New Hampshire could, gain a little bit on their highway fund, without increasing tax. That's how we would do it. Yeah. And I know they put the workers, I think I read the article, some article about it, and, most of them were, placed somewhere else throughout the system.
Yeah, they had attrition, they had this, they had places for them. They'd been planning this for a while, so there wasn't a massive layoff.
Yes.
The other thing Massachusetts is doing, which I think is very fascinating, is there's a new bridge building technology where you completely close the road at 5 o'clock on Friday. Nobody can use the road. You take the bridge out completely. You have modular bridge that has been designed to fit that location. They put it in, and by 5 a.m. Monday morning, they can open the road. And they've put 2 or 3 of these in Massachusetts already.
Really?
I find that fascinating, especially when you're in a long line of one lane on the interstate because they're working on the bridge. And I'm thinking to myself, that's really good technology.
Yeah.
Except, of course, in New Hampshire, there are a few other roads. So when they close the interstate to do that, it's going to be quite the mess in the little towns.
Well, I mean, look up in Concord. I mean, it takes them a whole year to build a bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to Florida one time, and they were building this 2-3 lane, another highway to Walt Disney. That's what it was. They got 5 of them going in there. And I'm looking at it going, wow, look at that. I mean, they had workers everywhere. I went back the following winter because I used to go down there in February's, and it was done. And I'm like, oh my God, they built a whole highway in a year. I mean, they know how to do it. I think they just put the man, we go by a bridge construction here and you see 6, 7 guys. And I'm like, but
they
hire somebody.
They don't deal with the snow. They don't deal with the sleet. They don't have.
And they're probably working 24 hours a day down there.
And they can work 24 hours a day. A lot of that Disney property was done with private dollars. So Disney's invested in getting people in, so they're invested in opening that road quickly.
Yeah, there's money behind. Yeah,
I mean, look at Hartford, Connecticut. Is it still under construction? think it's been under construction for maybe a century. Every time you go through there, there's some road construction in Hartford.
They got a lot of. I saw one time down in Hartford that they had a bridge just sitting there up in the air, and I was in a restaurant and I asked the lady, the waitress, I said, "What's that bridge doing?" "Oh, they're supposed to swing the highway around." So they put this bridge up, and this was supposed to be part of it, and now they've changed their plans, and they're going to tear it down. So I said, no cars have ever been on it. And she goes, how do you get up there?
Yeah.
And it was just sitting up in the air, and I'm going, oh my God, how much that cost? But they changed the route somehow.
Your tax dollars at work.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we're going to...
So anyway, highway block grants,
Yeah.
you will get that. Now this, what you've got here is what I had sent you. Senate Bill 367, which passed the House, passed the Senate, is the one that says we're going to index the highway tax to the consumer price index. So you can expect the highway tax will now go up every year. It's a little known fact that it passed because you got the 4-cent highway tax this year. Well, next year, the highway tax will be indexed to the CPI. If the CPI goes up, your highway tax will go up. And they have and that's the one that should go away in 20 years when I-93 is done. But they have estimated what each individual town would get in 2016. And the reason this has 2016 on it is because that is an estimate based on what they thought was going to be recovered or increased in the highway fund from the 4.2 cent per gallon gas tax that just went in. So Goffstown, for example, is scheduled to get nearly $900,000 in a highway block grant. You can spend that on any town road, doing any town project.
Well, that's over the life of the project.
No. That's over the life of the project.
For this year, it's going to be, or for 16, it's going to be almost 49,000.
Which is money that's free money to put into a town road.
So we could put it anywhere as we want.
Yeah, you get one of those every year now. So selectmen are putting it someplace. You should really have a warrant article to spend that. Are you Senate Bill 2?
Yes.
You should have warrant articles to spend that because selectmen have no way of knowing exactly how much money it's going to be because they don't know exactly how much gas tax has been collected from the previous year when they do the budget. Not that they're not doing their job. They're doing their job.
Yeah.
In Litchfield, they ran one warrant article that said just recently, every year we get the highway block grant, we can put it into the general fund, and we can spend the money. So they've stopped putting on a warrant article every year, but that's a recent thing for them.
All right. Yeah, well, we're going to take just a small break, and when we come back, we'll touch base on this a little bit more, and then also I got a couple other things. Oh, I wanted to talk about the surplus that we got coming up. It's not very much, but there's some concern.
It's already spent.
It is, yeah. No, there's some big concerns there, and there's a couple other things. A cell phone coming January 1st. Some rules there. So we'll be right back, and make sure you stay and watch. Welcome back to New Hampshire Politics with John Burt, and again, my guest is Representative Lynne Ober, and we're talking mainly, we've been chatting about the gas tax. One little tidbit that I want to bring up I don't know how many people remember this. In 2009, I believe it was, when President Obama took office, gas was $1.84 a gallon.
Oh, I know.
And today the average is $3.68.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's quite a difference. I got a real good friend that's in the oil business down in Texas. And he said, John, reality is gas should be about $2.25 to $2.35 right now. And he says, for one, it's the dollar stinks in value.
Right.
That's what's really hurting us. And there's a bunch of other stuff that's going on. And one of them is these tax increases, of course. That isn't helping us. And there's a whole bunch of stuff. But one thing I did want to mention that just came to me was on the highway, the tolls. Where does that toll money go?
Toll money goes into the Turnpike Fund. Those roads belong to the Turnpike, are not maintained by the Highway Fund, but are maintained solely by the tolls that are paid in. So that's one of the issues when the toll is completely taken off exit 12.
Oh.
There is no highway tax money to repair that because that is a Turnpike road.
And none of that money goes to the general fund or anywhere else?
None of it goes to the general fund. It maintains the Turnpike. It
Huh.
repaves if the Turnpike needs to be repaved. There's paving costs, there's plowing costs, there's restriping costs, there's patching costs. So all of that comes out of the tolls that are paid, and that is the Turnpike Fund. So if you're on a road with a toll in New Hampshire, I mean, we have some,
Yeah.
and then over in the Dover-Durham area is another stretch of Turnpike, and tolls are over there. The money maintains those sections and the exits.
Now, how about the employees? Are they Turnpike employees?
They're Turnpike employees.
Oh, really? Yeah. So I bet you a lot of people are, didn't realize that. So
Yeah.
when they zip through and they pay their dollar, that's where that money's going.
Right.
So then the gas tax is what maintains, the state road, like up north, it's all state roads, or,
Yep.
the state roads up
Any
there.
state highway. We have a couple of roads in Hudson that you wouldn't think of as being state roads, but Kimball Hill Road, Hillcrest in Litchfield, the gas tax maintains those. It maintains the little routes, Route 102, Route 111, wherever you are, Route 16, Route 9, whatever runs through your town.
Probably 114.
It is maintained there,
Yeah.
and the state's portion of what has to be done on the interstates. Because remember, there's a federal portion there and a state portion.
Yes.
So there is always some maintenance on just a pure interstate.
Yeah. Yep, there is.
Yeah, I drove down Route 114 to get here, so Highway Tax Fund money takes care of that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know down in Bedford they just put up new guardrails, so that's where that money would have came from, is the gas tax side.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I did want to touch base a little bit about the state. It was in the paper the other day. The state is going to end fiscal year 2014 with a $5.8 million revenue.
Right.
That's not very much money.
It's not very much money, and it's not what was expected. And to make it worse, the budget when it came to the House from Governor Hassan was not balanced. It was in the red. She spent $80 million of casino revenue. Normally, you expect the governor to then put, and that's in House Bill 1, is where all the details of the spending. So your selectmen have a budget, and that is the equivalent of House Bill 1.
Yes.
It's got all the things in it. Then there's what's called the quote-unquote trailer bill, and that is always House Bill 2. And the trailer bill has the changes needed to any state law in order to make House Bill 1 work. So, for example, when Governor Hassan gave the safety agency more money and suspended what they're getting, that went into House Bill 2. So that's how they could, quote unquote, get more money than what the law called for. So in House Bill 2, there should have been a section establishing a casino. But she didn't put it in there, and there was a Senate bill to establish a casino, and we all know that died. And then there was a second bill this year that ended in a tie in the House, so it died. So when her budget came to us, it was $80 million in the red. And we worked very diligently. The Senate worked very diligently. The Senate always has more money than we have. We pass the budget in March, but the Senate gets actual March revenues, which come out the beginning of April, actual April revenues, which are business taxes, which is a big month,
Yes.
and actual May revenues. And the House is dealing with a revenue estimate for March, April, and May, which may or may not be right. So we always try to spend a little less than what we think the estimate is,
Yeah.
because we don't have little dollars in our pocket. So the Senate has those dollars. So we cut, the Senate cut, when the money came in a little higher last year, the Senate added money back. We then thought we would take all of the surplus, expected surplus was around 40 million, and we took 23 million of that and put it at the top of fiscal year 2015. So the fact that we have a $5 million surplus means that 2015 is going to start in the red, because revenues weren't as good in 2014, and we actually paid that money forward to ourselves to spend in 2015.
Yes.
And that means, and that's why the governor has been in the paper saying, I want to call the legislature back to make budget cuts. And Senator Morris, who's the president of the Senate, says, no, the Senate's not coming back. The legislature can cut all of the budget. The governor can curtail spending in anything except the judicial branch, because the judicial branch is not under her control. So she has safety, DES, environmental services, health and human services. She has all the executive departments. She can curtail spending with executive orders, but she doesn't really want to be responsible for curtailing the spending.
Yeah.
She wants the legislature to come back and pass a budget cut bill. And Senator Moore said, no, we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem.
Yes.
Stop spending quite so much, and we will be fine. So heavens knows where this is going to go, but we don't have enough surplus to really fund fiscal year 2015 expenditures. And we've added a lot of things on. It was a party line vote, but the House passed expanded Medicaid. And everybody said, oh, well, Obama's going to pay 100% of that. Oh, that is so not true.
Yes. Yeah.
Obama is going to pay partial what the people get, but he's going to pay $0 on administration. Administration costs of the expanded Medicaid are expected to cost $7 million the first year and go up every year thereafter. Why is that so high? Because part of expanded Medicaid, you have to recertify every person who takes it every 6 months.
Wow.
So the administration never goes away. It's not like, okay, I certified John Burt, ready to go, give me another person. It's I certified John Burt, oh, his 6 months is coming up, I need to recertify him.
Wow, that's going to be huge.
We pay so little money, the federal government pays so little money to the medical providers for expanded Medicaid, something like 32 cents on the dollar billed, that primary care providers are not accepting Medicaid patients. And so what that means is those people keep going to the emergency wards at night, and the hospitals now are getting paid for what they were doing as part of charitable care, because every hospital that's nonprofit and makes a profit is supposed to give charitable care back to the community.
Yes.
Well, this will pay the hospitals 32 cents on every dollar, so they will be giving approximately one third less charitable care in their communities and getting reimbursed. But that administration cost goes on and on. That's not in the budget, so that's above and beyond. There's no money absolutely allocated in the budget for that. We settled the mental health lawsuit, which had an $8 million price tag. There's no money in the budget for that. There's $15 million extra for 2015 that's not in the budget, and we already don't have enough money to cover what's in the budget because the surplus was only $5 million, and we spent more than that from a surplus that didn't turn out.
Well, now my first term, controlled by Republicans, in 2010, we passed a good budget. There was a huge reduction in the state.
We passed a balanced budget. We had less money coming in There was an economic recession, so the state had less money, just like you had less money in your pocket probably. Your business was slower, you weren't making as much profit. State had the same situation.
Now, I do know most of the Democrats in the House, which there was only 100 of them at the time, they voted against it.
Right.
We basically bring the same budget back, we're real close, with about a $400 million increase in it, but not any tax impact on the taxpayer. So I voted for it because of that, even though I didn't like the $400 million increase, but there was no tax increase.
No, because we had more revenue, John.
Yes, that's what it was.
That's
so I
what it
looked
was.
at it and I said, you know, this is a good budget. So I voted for it.
Right.
But so where is our problem from this time compared to last time? Is it because of the Democrats are just spending like they're drunken sailors?
Revenues are up. They were up in 2014, they were up in 2015.
So we should be doing good.
They weren't up as much as we projected.
Oh, okay.
So the plan was a little off in April. It was quite a bit off in May. It's back on track for June. So it's like anything else. You make a revenue estimate. We're going to get this much rooms and meals tax. We're going to get this much cigarette smoking tax. Fewer people smoke, you get less revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, it just all kinds of works together. If you don't have money in your pocket to go out to eat, then rooms and meals tax is lower. So the revenue estimates were much lower than what Governor Hassan put out, but they still weren't met for those 2 months, and they were met pretty significantly. In the meantime, we'd had the $8 million lawsuit settlement. We'd had expanded Medicaid pass with a need for $7 million for administration. There were a number of bills. I mean, anybody can look on the House website. All the bills are there. Any bill that is House Bill 1234 FN. FN stands for Financial Fiscal Note, and that means money was spent. All the FN bills had money attached to them, and those bills added on to the budget. So every time you pass a bill with an FN on it and then you're spending money, if you don't get the revenue, then you have what Senator Morris calls a spending problem.
Yeah. And what the Senate President Morris is going to do is he's going to basically say, Governor, do your job.
Governor Lynch was faced with much of this twice. The first time he did, that I was in finance, that he did a budget, the budget went up nearly 11%. We didn't have revenues to cover that.
Wow.
The second time he did a budget, it went up 17% on top of that. So that was 27% the budget had grown. And that was, then you came in and the Republicans were in, and yes, we had some cuts, but we didn't cut 27% out.
No.
We only cut to match the revenue. But in both of those two bienniums, John Lynch was faced with the same problem. He issued executive orders to stop spending. I mean, he stopped travel, he stopped this, he stopped that. Governor Hassan put out an executive order to stop out-of-state travel and then spent $15,000 going overseas on a trade mission.
Yeah.
It needs to apply everywhere. She needs to say, okay, and I'm just not going to do this. Now, I understand she's wanting to go for a Senate seat when she gets out. She's specifically looking at running against Kelly Ayotte, and she needs to have some foreign credentials, so it's important to get over to Turkey. It's important to get to China. It's important to build that portfolio. I don't think it's important to do it on the back of our tax holders, because that's money that should go to the disabled. It should go to school aid. It should go to building roads. It should go to something that we paid for, not helping build a portfolio. And I really don't like to get into partisan politics, because I'm not horrendously partisan, even though I am one party versus another.
Yes.
But that is just kind of a fairness issue for me.
Yep.
If I were looking at spending my money and I said, hey, John, give me $100 because you can't go here, but I need to go there.
Yeah.
You would probably say the same thing to me. Well, Lynn, if you can go out and buy steak for $100 at this restaurant, how come we don't split it and we'll each go to McDonald's and have $50 and some change in our pocket?
That's right. Yeah.
So that's what it boils down to.
Well, and I do see her husband's stepping down from being the principal at the school.
Yep.
Yeah, to help her endeavors.
He's quite a fundraiser. he has a history of being a really good fundraiser, and the word is he's going to start fundraising for her Senate race against Senator Ayotte.
So this is a temporary job for her. You know, being
She wants
governor.
to run one more term. He's given them 12 months notice, so he's not stepping down immediately. I mean, he's
Yeah.
done the fair thing to that school. He's given them a long time notice so that they can have a good search time, and he's not leaving anybody in a lurch. And then he'll be prepared if she gets reelected, which I think she will. That'll be the first year of her second term. Then he'll be prepared the second year of her second term to start raising funds for her campaign against Senator Ayotte, because Kelly will be up then for reelection.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I know there's a lot of anti-Kelly commercials now.
Yep.
And it's like, she's not even up for reelection.
It's hard. If you vote yes on X, Y, and Z, there's always somebody who wanted you to vote no. If you vote no on X, Y, and Z, there was somebody who wants you to vote yes. It's very difficult. I try to vote with the majority of my constituents. My constituents email me, they call me, I talk to them. I keep track in a spreadsheet. I've got this many people and who they are in favor versus this many against to help me craft my votes, because I say to people, I'm your voice in New Hampshire, and therefore I need to listen to them.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And now I'm not sure exactly when it's coming up. Is it January 1st, the cell phone?
I'm not sure, but I think it is January 1st. Okay. Again, that bill passed. Governor Hassan has signed it into law, and it basically says if you are using your cell phone or any electronic device, including, my friends, changing your GPS while your car is moving, you can be fined. You're going to have to pull over to the side of the road. It's not clear to me if you have to turn off your engine and then do what you're going to do and then pull back on. But supposedly between now and January 1st, the state's going to have public service announcements, and I don't know what that's going to cost, and public education, so that you have a chance of knowing, oh, I've got my phone to my ear, police officer's going to pull me over and give me a pretty hefty fine.
Yeah. Well, and I know that the first fine is $100, and I think the second's $500.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know what the fines were.
Yeah, I think that's what they are.
You'll be able to use hands-free, so if you have a car that's got Bluetooth reception, which my husband's car does, fine, mine doesn't, or you'll have a Bluetooth earpiece, you'll be able to talk on your phone hands-free. But if you pick up a phone, you're seen fiddling with your GPS and any other electronic device.
Yeah. Now, I did vote against that.
Yeah, I did too.
And the reason I did is because we have the distracting, drive-in law currently, that they could get you on it. If you're weaving all over the place because you're fiddling with your phone or GPS, they can ticket you now. So to me, we just didn't need this.
I don't think we needed it, but I'll tell you, I don't think it's going to be too long, and none of us will be able to have a driver's license. I mean, a self-driving car has already passed the driver's test in Nevada.
Yeah.
Google has ordered and produced 100 self-driving cars. They use GPS. They get where you're going. And if we continue to have distracted driving, deaths from distracted driving, it's going to be easy for people to start saying, I don't want people to drive because you're driving in a distracted manner, or you're driving drunk all the time. Well, let's not give that person a driver's license and let them have a self-driving car. Now, quite frankly, I see self-driving cars as being a boon to if you're disabled, or if you're elderly and you don't want to drive at night, or you could stay in your home a little longer if somebody would drive you to the grocery store. My personal goal, order my groceries online, send my car to the grocery store where I hate to go, have my car bring my groceries home, and I'll put them away.
Yeah.
So that may be our future.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in science fiction books now, but it really, distracted driving and drunken driving is becoming a bigger and bigger problem, and I think it's going to continue to be. So all states are looking at things. I thought this was a little harsh.
Yeah. Well, I know like Hannaford's now, some, I think they got pilots that you can call your order in.
Right.
your groceries. You look online, click, click, click. You drive up to the drive-through window and they throw the bags out. Or somebody comes out and I guess puts them in your trunk.
Puts them in your car.
You don't even have to get out of your
Pay
car.
with your credit card. Yep, absolutely.
And I'm like, wow. Yeah. No, I think the self-driving car is kind of cool, and they say there's a flying one too.
Yeah, I've always wanted a flying car. And,
Yeah.
and I do. I read a lot, and there's an author I read who's science fiction, and the cars can fly when you need to, and that just sounds like fun to me. I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know what we're going to do with all of our roads that we're building. If we
Well,
go to
self-driving cars need to drive on something, John.
Well, that's true. In my 1953 Farmall, will I be able to drive that forever?
Not if you don't have a driver's license.
That's true. I don't know what I'll do with it. Yeah, no, I have a lot of fun with that. Is there anything else that we should bring up? You know, we're getting toward the end of the show, and
How about
just,
the?
you know, if there's
Basically,
something-
we settled the tax situation. Governor Lynch, and this was the year that the Republicans were in charge in the legislature. Governor Lynch cut paying the Medicaid enhancement tax back to the hospitals.
Yes.
This was kind of like a highway block grant for states. So all 50 states did this. It started back in, I think, 91. There was a program where you taxed the hospitals. You told the feds how much tax you collected from the hospitals. They paid you the tax, and you paid it back to the hospital. So the state got some revenue from that, and the hospital got all their money back. Then the rules changed, and with the feds, the rules weren't very clear. And when Lynch was in office, we got audited. We hadn't been following the rules according to the way the federal government thought, and we had to pay back $35 million.
Yes, I remember that.
Okay, so Lynch, in the budget he put out, which was your first session,
Yep.
just decided he wouldn't pay the hospital taxes, the Medicaid enhancement tax, except there are hospitals called Critical Care. They're small hospitals that serve the northern tier or the less populated western tier. So they're smaller hospitals, and he paid that tax to them. Literally, they run on it. They don't have enough income.
Yes.
And yet you don't want somebody in Berlin to have to be transported to Catholic Medical Center or Elliott Hospital in Manchester because they're having a heart attack. You want them to have a local hospital that can take care of. So he left the Medicaid enhancement tax with the critical care hospitals. That came to the legislature, and we just didn't change it. We let it go through.
Yep.
Then 26 of the hospitals sued because they weren't getting their money back. They were outraged. That lawsuit is up in the Supreme Court, and they're working on it, and there had been a lot of negotiations back and forth. Governor Hassan was working on the negotiations, as was Senator Morris. I mean, it was a bipartisan effort to try to solve the lawsuit in a more equitable way. The critical care hospitals will continue to get their money. That's the good thing.
Yes, yeah.
And the legislature passed a bill agreeing to pay the hospitals a big portion of the money they got. St. Joseph's in Nashua would not sign on to this agreement, and the other hospitals signed in their agreement that if St. Joe continued their lawsuit, the other hospitals would kick in and cover the St. Joe portion.
Oh, good.
St. Joe is in kind of an interesting situation. They were running an ambulance service for a large area of people. It got competitively bid by the area. And a for-profit ambulance service, and this again was in your first term, a for-profit ambulance service beat them out, and as a result, St. Joe laid off their ambulance drivers, all their ambulance system.
Yeah.
They were taking the profit from that and running some elderly services and running some other services in their hospital, and they had to close those down. And at first, the articles in the newspaper, it made it sound like it was because of the Republican budget, But then as the dust started to clear, people realized they had lost a competitive bid for ambulance services, and they had been using the extra that they had been charging to fund all these programs. So it had nothing to do with the budget that had passed. And they're the only one that wouldn't sign. But the other hospitals felt that they had a good negotiation. We'd reached a good place. And I think if you talk to any head of any hospital, they don't want the critical care hospitals to close either.
Yeah, no, they don't. No, I think it was a good deal, and I remember voting,
Yep.
positively for it.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah. But no, we're at the end, and I just want to thank you for coming on. I think it was, we got the information out as best we could on, I think the viewers like that, especially on the gas tax part. I think a lot of them don't understand where, the money goes, as I didn't.
No, gas, and besides, gas prices are up one day, down the
Yeah.
next day, up again. It's hard to know what's causing it.
It is, yeah. But, well, I want to thank you for coming on.
John, thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. And again, we were talking with Representative Lynne Ober, and I want to thank you for watching. And until next time, have a good day. Bye now.